Hey guys, welcome to this week's video. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about planning styled shoots and give some tips that I've learned over the years from hosting my event ColourPop, as well as the styled shoots I hosted before then, that will hopefully help you if planning a styled shoot is something that you're interested in or something that you've been wanting to do for a while, because they can be quite complicated and overwhelming and kind of just a lot for a photographer to take on all of these different roles if you don't have like a big team to help you. So I've learned quite a few things over the years through mistakes I've made myself and just from, running events like these regularly. I feel like I could call myself a seasoned vet now that we've been doing ColourPop 3 years. And before that, I've been hosting events since 2018 in Utah and in Florida on a much smaller scale than ColourPop. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to share with you a couple of tips that come to mind that will hopefully help you if you want to start planning styled shoots. Now, I could create an entire online course about this because I have learned a lot over the years. And, especially this year, hiring a full-time producer to help with ColourPop has been so amazing to take a lot of the legwork off of me when it comes to the logistics side of production. And this year especially was probably the most challenging year we've had at ColourPop because of a couple of little things that popped up that we did not think would happen or we hoped wouldn't happen, but they did. And I'll kind of talk to you about it a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted to make this quick video on things that will hopefully help you if you're thinking about planning a styled shoot and you haven't done it before, or you just want to get better at doing it if you are doing them already. Okay, so the first part of planning a styled shoot is budgeting. If you are charging a ticket fee for photographers to come to your event, you have those numbers of, what your budget is that you're working with, how much money you'll be making from the event, how much you have to spend on things like models, wardrobe, hair, makeup, studios, permits, all of these things, and what your overall profit will be as the photographer at the end of the day. So you kind of have to value, how much you're willing to spend on expenses to know how much you'll make at the end of the day. So not going into it blindly is important. You want to really set aside these budgets. When me and Ashley get together to plan ColourPop, we create budgets for every single type of expense that we're going to have, and we keep track of that while planning the event. Are we on track for our budget? Are we spending too much money on wardrobe? Are we spending too much money on hair? We have to figure out, if we can save some money in one area if we're, going over in another. So yeah, kind of just think about all the expenses that go into planning a styled shoot. Hiring models, hiring hairstylists, makeup artists, florists, anyone else that you're gonna have that you're paying for their time, as well as things like renting studio space, securing permits for locations, wardrobes, props, set design, accessories. If meals are included, if you're hosting a large scale event where meals are included for attendees, that goes into the production costs. And my biggest tip is that no matter how large scale your styled shoot is, whether you're having 3 photographers come and you're collaborating with a lot of people, or you're hosting a retreat in a big Airbnb, it doesn't matter what it is, you should have snacks and waters on set during your photo shoots always, for your models, for your attendees, for your team, because that's just super important. You don't want anyone getting dehydrated or feeling faint, especially if you're shooting and it's hot outside, because that has happened at a shoot that I've been at before. So just always come with snacks and waters and plenty. Coolers of ice. Be prepared. Okay, so next I want to talk about some tips for working with models for styled shoots. When you reach out to a model and you pitch the idea to them, let them know what your budget is for their time, or ask them what their rate is depending on how you're planning on doing it. It's important to these next steps to communicating with your model to be really professional and, make sure that they understand that this is a serious event. It's not something you're just doing for fun. So I think the best way to do this, especially if you're working with new talent that you've never worked with before and you don't necessarily know how experienced they are, if they're reliable, sometimes you reach out to models that you find on Instagram and you don't realize until the day of the shoot that they're 16 years old. A lot of the models we've worked with some of the agencies here are under 18, so their parents will come, or we worked with the agency to hire them. So you just got to make sure that you're communicating as much as possible, as professionally as possible, so that they know what their expectations are when they're showing up to the shoot, and you have all the information you need without having to follow up a million times. So the best way that I figured out over the years of hosting ColourPop and styled shoots in general to approach this is to, after you reach out to your model, if they agree, yes, I'm interested, the rate aligns with my rate, whatever it may be, the next step is to get their email address, their phone number, and send them a questionnaire. So I send a Google form that asks them all kinds of questions. So it asks them their full name, their age, where they're located. They don't have to send me their address, but just what area, just for carpooling purposes. Because a lot of the time for ColourPop, we'll organize carpools for the model. So we want to know, which ones live near each other, and we can maybe help facilitate that carpooling to offset costs for them. I'm going off on a tangent already. Where they're located, their clothing sizes, their shoe sizes, their Venmo handle, their PayPal handle, however you plan on paying them, make sure you include that in the questionnaire. And then at the end, make sure to either link or include some sort of model release form form where they sign and understand that the images that are taken of them will be used in your portfolio and the other photographers' portfolios on their websites, things like that. So there's no confusion on the usage of the imagery. So the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to models is call sheets. So if you're not familiar with what a call sheet is, it's basically a document that you send to anyone involved in a shoot, in a project. It doesn't have to just be models. If you have a larger team involved, like hairstylist, makeup artist, producer, stylist, florist, anyone else that's going to be literally on set the day of your shoot or at hair and makeup, if it's a different location than the shoot location, it's customary to send out a call sheet that basically says what everyone's name is, what their role is on set, what time they need to be at set, what the address is, what time the wrap is, what the weather will be like, all of the parking information or like logistical information of how to access a building or get to the spot that you're going to be shooting at. All of that information should be in a call sheet, and you'll send it out to everyone that's involved via email or however you plan on doing it ahead of the shoot. Usually call sheets are sent out the week of the photo shoot. So this is important because you want the people that are going to be involved in your styled shoot to have all of the information in one place that they can pull up really easily, and that's like super accessible, and so that you're not sending out like a million different emails and text messages and writing all these long paragraphs to multiple people. It's just best to create one sort of document that has all this, including contact information for who they should call or text if something happens or they get lost or their car breaks down or they have some sort of issue. Who their point of contact should be clarified on that call sheet. So you can make a call sheet a Word document, you can make one in Canva, you can use whatever sort of program you want, but there's also like subscription-based programs that you can pay for that do a really great job at it. We kind of switched to doing that. For ColourPop, the one that we use is called Studio Binder. I can't remember what the cost is, but it's definitely worth it if you host styled shoots a lot. Basically, you put all this information into the call sheet and it sends the call sheet via text message and email to everyone involved in it. And it's really great, especially on phone, because when they get a text, they say, hey, your call sheet's been sent to you for this shoot on this date. Click here to open it. You click it on your phone. It shows you the PDF on the website with all the information, and it says, click here to confirm that you've seen this call sheet. And that's the most important part, because there's nothing worse than sending information to a model or anyone involved and them not answering you and you just thinking they're gonna come to the shoot because you sent them the information, but they don't show up. You wanna make sure that they've seen and they confirm and they understand that they are coming to the photo shoot and they know what to bring. That should also be included in the call sheet. It's just really great to have that extra layer of confirmation that you know and they know what everyone's expectations are, because things get overwhelming when you have a lot of people involved. It's hard to keep tabs on, you know, who has answered you and who hasn't, and you don't want something to get lost in the communication. So being as professional and as organized as possible planning styled shoots is super important. So next, I just want to give some tips on setting expectations for attendees of your photo shoots, photographers that are signing up or probably paying a fee to come to your event. So the first tip, which I'm sure I've reiterated 1,000 times and you know already, but anytime there is money on the line, there should be a contract involved. So anyone that is paying you a fee to come to your event as a photographer should be signing a contract. And in that contract, in that agreement, should be your policies on refunds and ticket transfers. Are you going to allow your attendees to sell their ticket to another photographer if they can no longer make it? And if so, are they able to get their deposit back? Are they able to get any funds back that they've paid? Just, you have to really clarify what your policies are in that, because that probably will happen at some point or other when you're hosting a styled shoot. So you want to make sure they understand all of these policies before they pay any deposits or sign your contract. My next tip is to continue to have communication with your attendees before the event. So after they sign your contract, pay your invoice for the deposit, and agree that they're coming, don't just ghost them until the day of the shoot or the week of the shoot. You want to remind them that their attendance of your event is important to you. And so to do that, it's important to, you know, continue to follow up with them leading up to it. So it depends on how large scale your event is, what kind of things you need to communicate with. If you're doing something that involves all staying together like a retreat, or you're catering meals, you want to make sure you keep in contact with them. Does anyone have any dietary preferences? Does anyone have any questions or concerns about staying together? So like, there's going to be more things involved when you're hosting a large scale event, but even if it's a smaller event, it's still important to, you know, create those group chats, create those Facebook groups or Instagram group messages or whatever, and just keep in touch with your attendees leading up to the event to let them know, you know, just sending mood boards, sending inspiration, and, you know, continuing to update them on how excited you are about the event, what they can expect, what they should bring, all of these sort of things. It's also important to educate your attendees before the event on the logistics, on what it will look like. You can also do this the day of the event, but it's still important to kind of, again, set their expectations. It's always the most important part. And we facilitated that even more so this year. We do a lot of communication with our attendees, videos with them leading up to our event for ColourPop. But this year we even even did a welcome presentation as soon as they all arrived and everyone was together. Before we started shooting, we again reiterated the stuff we had talked to them about before, but in person. We gave them a rundown of what all of the shoots are gonna look like, what the rotations and the groups will look like, what's okay and not okay to do during a styled shoot. And so really just like doing that welcome presentation this year really helped, I think, the dynamic of the group so much. Not that we've ever really had problems before. Everyone that's come to ColourPop in the past 3 years has been so amazing and we've never had problems or issues really, but there's always some people that are a little bit more vocal and some people are a little bit more shy during a photo shoot, and you want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So really setting those expectations on what is appropriate to do and ask for at a photo shoot is really important to do beforehand. So also leading up to your styled shoot, you need to decide what the logistics of your photo shoot is like actually going to look like. So if you're doing more than one shoot, you need to decide, you know, are you gonna have all of your photographers shooting one concept at once? Are you gonna break them up into smaller groups and have different like photo shoot stations at one location? Are you going to let them choose those groups? Are you going to separate them and put them into their own groups? Like all of these are things that you should consider. And again, it depends on how many photographers are coming to your event, if there's a lot or only a few. From what I've personally learned hosting events is that 10 photographers doesn't sound like a lot, but it feels like a lot, especially when you're all sort of trying to get the same shot. So splitting up your attendees into as small groups as possible is key. We try at ColourPop to split our attendees into groups of 5 for as much of the shooting time as possible. There are times when we'll have them in groups of 10, but we never have them all shoot in a group of 20 because it's just chaotic and there's no way that anyone could get close to the models without getting in each other's shots. You basically have to just shoot at a distance. So thinking about all these things when it comes to rotations, setting timers, going back and forth in between concepts if you have multiple stations is super, super important. Basically just planning all of this out ahead of time is so key instead of just winging it at the shoot, because you'll be surprised how chaotic it can start to feel when there's a lot of photographers involved. So you want to have that fleshed out as much as possible beforehand, because you want your photographers to have a great experience so that they keep coming back if hosting styled shoots is something you plan on doing regularly. So my last tip is to have a plan B for weather. That is something that has always haunted me as an event host. I can control everything in the world except weather. So, you know, we've always tried for ColourPop to host our events in months where there's the least amount of rainfall possible, and Utah is in a desert, so rain is very rare here. So it is something that's always a variable, especially when you're shooting outdoors. So you kind of have to think about what is your plan B if rain happens. Rain did happen this year for the second weekend of ColourPop, and thank God we had an amazing team, and thank God our studio had an opening that was available on the time that we did not book it for, and we could swap things around, which is what we ended up doing. Thank God all of our models had availability to swap things around, but we got really lucky. And I knew this would happen at some point. It was my worst nightmare, but we made it work. But you kind of have to think about these things ahead of time. So maybe if you're booking a studio, maybe reach out and see, you know, I know we booked you for the morning, but what's your availability for the afternoon in case there's rain in the morning? Maybe you book the full day instead of just the half day, or maybe you pay a deposit to have them hold a day. You just need to kind of like think about all these things beforehand and communicate clearly. Explain these things to whatever location or studio you're reaching out to and say, hey, here are my hesitations for my event I'm hosting. Let me know if you have any policies in place already for weather, this kind of thing. And just be open and honest with them so you can figure out a plan for what works for you and rebudget if you need to. So I hope these tips helped if you guys are interested in hosting styled shoots. I know I've talked about collaborations before. It's one of the first lessons in Made to Make, but I kind of just wanted to talk about this from like a logistical planning perspective as an event host. Just as my biggest tip, really, being as professional and over prepared and organized as possible will make not only your attendees and your models and everyone involved have a good experience at your event, but it'll make your life easier. You know, doing more work in the front end will make the whole experience more seamless, more smooth. You'll have a better time at your shoots, and you know, your attendees will have a great time, and so will your models, and they'll want to keep coming back and working with you. So if you guys have any questions about the stuff that I talked about in this video, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Bye.